with Chris Goslow, a pianist who has studied classical music and all kinds of music from pop to hip-hop to rock. Let's talk about piano lessons for a minute. Say somebody has always wanted to play piano, but maybe they're discouraged by the mystique of it. Could you demystify it in a few minutes for us and give someone a starting point on where they could start learning piano?
Sure, absolutely. The first thing I'll say is that if someone really wants to learn piano and that's a persistent desire that doesn't go away, because sometimes we have these passing desires but they just leave, but if you find yourself just keep coming back to your mind, like, wow, I really want to learn to play piano, that right there is in a way your biggest asset, because that suggests to me like a real desire that you need. I think if you're gonna persist long enough to learn piano or really anything, I mean everybody has something that they've really wanted and they go after it with a sort of fire that gets them there, it seems to me, and piano is no different. So that's the first thing. But in terms of demystifying it, the piano is it's actually very doable to learn. I mean, it really helps if you have the guidance of a teacher who knows how, someone you trust, someone who you can talk to, who can help you demystify it. But the fact is, it's totally doable, you know. So the first thing I'd say is that piano is actually sort of easy to get going with, perhaps easier than some other instruments because it's all laid out in front of you.
It's linear.
Yeah, it's linear, it's visual, you know, and what I do with new students who've never played before, and honestly, no matter what their age, if they're a kid, if they're an adult, and I work with all of those ages, we start out by just getting used to this physical space, and so they start learning right away. For example, what do you see when you look at the piano? Everybody knows that we have black notes and white notes, and you can't get more simple than that. So the first thing I want to direct your attention to, besides that, is the fact that you got groups of 2 and 3 black notes going up the keys. Right? So this is a very important little piece of knowledge, because I want you to look at the group of 2 black notes right here in the middle of the keys, and right to the left of that is the first key that students usually learn, and the one I'm teaching you right now, this is C. And specifically, it's middle C because it's right in the middle of the keyboard. But this is C. And this is a really good place to start getting oriented on the piano. Why? Because, well, for one thing, a lot of the things that people learn and the things that people play are starting in C. And if you start out with beginners books and beginners songs, they're usually in C. And a lot of songs happen to be in C anyway. So
because it has no sharps or flats.
Yeah, well, that's the next thing, is that actually, if you start here and go up and just play white keys, you're playing all these notes that go together in this nice way. And there's all kinds of possibilities, and this happens to be called C major. And anyway, you start learning with C, it's pretty simple. You start learning all the other notes. The note next to it is D. And the note next to that is E. The note next, F, G, and it starts over, A, B, and then guess what's next? C. And it starts the pattern over again. So you can pretty quickly get oriented to see what all these white keys are. You start with this one, with C, next to the 2 black notes. And then in either direction, you just start to be able to sort of count, so to speak, with letters. C, going backwards, B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. So this is a good little introduction where you already start to know your way around the keyboard.
And so every time you see 2 black keys, that means there's a C right before the first black key.
Right to the left of it.
Yeah.
So that's the place to start. And then you look at the whole keyboard. Look for it, you'll notice, whoa, these are all C. Because you got the same two black keys next to C. And this happens to be C at the top. All of a sudden, you've played the whole keyboard. I mean, at least some of the notes. And it's no longer quite as mysterious a forest. You know, now you identify the main trees that are there. And it's like, whoa, I get a sense for the whole thing. So you can start that way. And pretty soon, you do the same with the other notes. You just get used to it. Here's D. Whoa, same thing here. D. And so on. When I show this to students, what I find is that they pretty quickly get a sense for this thing, and they sort of have an understanding of it. That I find that it always works to show them in this kind of holistic, kind of big way, show them the big perspective, because it immediately demystifies it. And they're already in learning how to play, in a sense, by understanding what the notes are.
And then tell us real quickly about the black keys.
Okay. Well, I will say this. Normally I wouldn't go into the names of the black keys or even really talk about it that much in the first lesson, because I don't know that it's as relevant for complete beginners as long as they get the white keys. But what we do is, over time, we introduce them gradually. Generally, I focus on the white keys and start from there. But on the other hand, I will say this about the black keys. It's pretty easy to play some music that sounds good if you just use the black keys. You know? I mean, even if you just do one hand. So it can be a really fun way to experiment with sounds if all you did was use the black keys and start getting some experience playing. Because you can come up with some nice things without really knowing even what the names of the keys are, because if you just stuck to black keys, you got some good melodic possibilities that are usually going to sound good. And that happens to be because these 5 notes form something called the pentatonic scale, which is very popular, common, sounds good, and there's all kinds of uses in music for it.
Blues?
Yeah, blues, pop, I mean, all kinds of, really just about any style. You see it in some way.
So to give them names, they're like sharps going up and flats
absolutely.
going down.
Yeah, since you're curious about that. Basically, and again, I probably wouldn't say that in the first lesson if I was just meeting someone new.
It's too much information.
Yeah, I just try to get them to think about the thing, but I will, since you're asking about it. Basically, each of the white keys has a letter name, and it's A through G. Like I said before, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then it repeats. Okay? Now, in music, each of the black keys is derived from one of those white keys in its name. If it's C and you go up, then it's called C sharp, because a sharp means that you go up, you raise the note. Okay, on the other hand, if we're going down from E, it's called E flat, because you're going down, and a flat means you're lowering the note. Okay, so I usually would suggest you first get the concept of the letters, and then we start introducing the sharps and flats. But basically, the idea is you just get used to adding a sharp or a flat next to the letter name, and then you know to raise that note or lower it to get to the black keys.
Chris, thanks for identifying every note on the piano.
You're welcome, Alex. Thank you for asking.
I think that's a great starting point.